Good evening. Welcome to Living Hope Online. We were off last week, back here again this week. And if you've been with us over the last few weeks, you know that we're doing something just slightly different time, slightly different conversation. Since we've been doing here at Living Hope, prayer, kind of a prayer service on Wednesday nights leading up to Easter over the last handful of weeks. And instead of doing a typical Living Hope Online, what we've been trying to do is just to be able to express and share a little bit about what we just experienced ourselves over the last 20 minutes or so, and then hopefully have you guys all chime in as well about some of your experiences with prayer and how that looks. If you're new to Living Hope Online, it's not something you've watched before, this is really just a conversation between us up here, but more importantly, between us and you and whoever else might be online. I'll have my phone out. A lot of us, sometimes we have tables. It's very throws me off quite a bit to not have a table in front of me. But I don't have a table right now. But we'll have phones out. We'll be able to see the comments that you guys are making and be able to share those out as we kind of share. But again, this is a little bit of a slightly different format. If this is your first time with us, you won't know that. But this is just slightly different, maybe even a touch less conversational than normal between us and you. But we still hope to hear from you. We still hope to be able to interact with you throughout our conversation over the next, again, maybe 20, 25 minutes. Before we get started and really jump in, I want us to be able to introduce ourselves. My name is Justin, and I just am really the guy that talks at the beginning. And then I get to kind of ask questions and not say a whole lot moving forward, which is great. Suits me really well. And then to my left, we have
Terry Harrell.
And to my immediate right,
Chris Rogers.
And all the way on the end.
Hi, everybody. I'm Susan.
And we'll just be, like I said, talking with you guys tonight, and hopefully we'll be able to hear some conversation with you back. Tonight, one of the things that we started off, and as John led us through things at the beginning, he talked about prayer and kind of repetitive repeating of a word, which is repetitive. That's why we said it like that. And specifically, we started off talking about Yahweh, which John explained to us was, if you don't know, he explained to us as well, like it's the idea of breathing. Really, it should be an unpronounceable word, right? But realistically, it's the sound of breath. So the beginning part, the Yah, is kind of breathing in, and then the way is kind of exhaling. And so to be able to focus in on that and really focus in on saying just God's name lined up with our breath. And then we did another one, and I'm actually going to blank on this. It was
Abba.
Abba.
I belong to you.
I belong to you. I am yours. Something along those lines. So again, Abba, I belong to you. And as we did those prayers, I thought for me one of the things that was interesting was that we completely cut music. I can't remember if we've done that the last several weeks or not. But there was a lot more silence. And I thought that was kind of interesting. So I kind of wanted us to talk about that a little bit. And maybe for you, if you're out there, one of our questions maybe that I would be interested to hear from you is, when you're praying, how do you do with silence? Do you do well with that? Do you prefer that? Is that actually like a really uncomfortable thing for you when you're trying to pray? Or maybe even silence in general. How do you do with that? I'd love to be able to hear your kind of thoughts on that. We'll kind of discuss that. I'd be curious just to hear your guys' experience in general with that beginning part, or anything specific with the silence. It kind of anything goes, honestly. Just really, what did you guys experience during that beginning silent part where we were doing the repetitive prayer?
For me, I was actually happy to have that direction to start with Yahweh and to say, Abba, I belong to you, because silence by itself can be intimidating, and I have to come up with something to think about, and then my mind goes, and I don't necessarily focus very well. So having that direction allowed me to focus on the breath, and it was cool that the Yahweh actually meant the breath of God, and it's like, okay, let me think about God. And then Abba, I think of Abba, and the word means father, right? So I'm going, and then it took me to this, song that I learned as a kid, and it's around, and it's Father, I adore you, and then Jesus, I adore you, and then Spirit, I adore you. So I'm singing it in my head as I'm going through and doing Yahweh. So yeah, it was a really interesting experience, but very focused on just the quiet and and the Father, and it's like, okay, I'm here. And my devotional this morning talked about trusting in Him, so I'm thinking, okay, I can trust in my Father, and so the word that I had thought of when we were finished with it was comfort, comforted.
Yeah, that was good. Good.
Yeah, so I had heard it once before as far as the Yahweh, the breath of life. It's your first breath of life, you're speaking God's name. Your last breath of life, you're speaking God's name. I had heard that before, and tonight just kind of reaffirmed it. But to me, silence is deafening.
Yeah.
It is, I cannot deal with the silence. Since, I started therapy and everything like that, like music has been my key. I don't even listen to commercials or anything like that. I have to have something else there, and I don't know if it's just half the time I don't even realize it's there until like I'm working and it I lose internet service or whatever it is, and all of a sudden it's like, what is this noise? And the noise is silence.
Yeah.
And it's so odd. So it was a little different tonight, but breathing and doing the Yahweh and going through that, it was really strange because tonight, not only did I feel, because I normally go a mile a minute, and I'm always doing stuff, but it was relax and just calm yourself down. And I literally saw, with my eyes closed, like you would tell a child, hey, calm down or whatever. I literally saw the hand reach out to me, like to my forehead, just like, calm down.
Yeah.
You don't have to go a mile a minute. So it was a little different.
Nice.
Like, to the point that if you had seen me in my seat, I went like this, with my eyes closed and everything. It was really, really creepy. But, sometimes that's the way God's got to reach you. So 'cause
Yeah.
you don't listen any other way.
Yeah, that's really good. Brecklin jumped in. She said silence in general scares her. However, silence during prayer brings a really such a calm to her, and she really loves that transition between worldly silence and silence with God. And I thought that was interesting. And really, I guess maybe Brecklin, as a question, I'm not going to type it in here. It takes me forever to type in here with one hand, especially. I don't know, even with two hands. But I'd be interested to know, to you, how would you describe the difference between worldly silence and silence with God? What's the difference there? I'd be interested to hear from you. Terry, do you want to share?
Yes. Do I have this too close? I always
No,
feel like
you're
I'm
good. Yeah,
screaming.
right up.
You're good. You're
Put it
good.
right up against your chin.
When I do those kinds of things and it's quiet and there's no music in the background, which makes me uncomfortable. I don't like that either. So I'm doing Yahweh, Yahweh, and I did that like 50 times, and then I did Abba, I belong to you. And I kept saying that, and I kept going back to the other one, because every time I said I belong to you, I got distracted for some reason, started thinking about other things. And I thought, well, maybe that means I'm supposed to focus on it, so I focused on it. And what I saw was Jesus reaching down, like he was reaching down. He was real flowy, like air was blowing around him. And he's like, I belong to you.
Oh. Wow.
And I said that too. Ooh, that's a different thought. Because when I hug my dad and I would say, you're my daddy, he would say, I'm your daddy, right back to me. So why wouldn't he say that right back to me? Belong to you too.
Sure.
Just like when your kids sit on your lap, right? And
Yeah.
that's what happened. It was very cool.
That is really cool. Several we talked about, and people online too, we've got that idea that silence can be like an uncomfortable thing for us. Whether it's you specifically, or whether it's just maybe your perception of people in general, if silence doesn't particularly bother you. But what do you think it is about silence that maybe is unsettling to us at times? Or to people in general? I don't know, what are your thoughts?
When it's silent, you have no option but to think.
Ooh, yeah, I never thought it. You're absolutely right.
I never thought of that because I avoided silence.
I
so
avoid
much. Yeah.
but you're absolutely right. When you have nothing else to distract your mind, then all of a sudden you have to think, and it gets scary sometimes. So, ooh.
Yeah.
No, go. What were
Oh,
you
no,
gonna
I
say?
was just saying this, because you said the sound of silence is deafening, and now I'm thinking the sound of silence, the song.
Yeah,
But,
sure.
And I was thinking of, I don't remember if it was a Super Bowl commercial or was it a commercial or something like that, because the sound is always there, right? You have sound always around, and it's crazy. And I remember one time, because oftentimes I'll try to read, and the others in my family are watching TV, and I remember one time, and it just stopped. And I'm like, and it gets your attention, right? If there is the sound, and it wasn't
Yeah.
that it was a miscue or something, it hadn't gone black, it wasn't some weird thing happening with the TV. It was actually the commercial, but there was no sound. It was so effective because it made everybody look at it
Yeah.
and go, what's happening?
Yeah.
So it's really, silence can be very loud, like he said, very
Yeah.
engaging.
Brecklin had said in response to my verbal question to her, which thanks, nothing proves that you're paying attention like that, Brecklin. But she said, worldly silence is like my mind running, thinking of all the stressful stuff, and when I'm in communication with God, it's almost as if the world is on pause, and God is giving me comfort from the chaos. And it kind of actually reminds me of what you guys were just saying, like that initial silence almost feels like our mind wants to initially go to like all the things, right? Whatever that might be, whether it's a stress or the things, things to do or whatever it might be. It wants to jump to like those things. We almost have to push past that a little bit or sit in that a little bit to get ourselves to the spot that Brecklin's talking about with a little bit of the silence. And then Pat had jumped in and she said, anyone that knows me, silence isn't usually a part of me, but my silence during my devotional time has become so amazing and fills me with peace. I'm listening eagerly to what God wants me to hear from him. And again, I think that's an interesting idea, like that eager listening as opposed to not wanting to be in the silence, you know? So when we're in those silence, and even if you think about specifically tonight, like when we started off in the silence, and initially the music, Chris goes back and turns down the music, and like we're all of a sudden we're in silence. And we've got something to say, but you can only, you're saying it so many times in your head. How did it feel to transition from like an initial like to being maybe more in tune with either the rhythm of it or with God? Like how does that feel to transition? Or maybe for somebody that's out there watching that's like, oh, I can't get to that point. Like how do you push through? I don't know. I guess I don't know what my exact question is there, but
I think it was a little easier for me tonight because I was the one that controlled the volume. So, and I had the time to walk back to my seat, and like it gave me a different perspective. But
Yeah.
I could imagine being in the seat where it's
now it's gone.
it's gone.
Yeah.
And like all you can hear is like buzzing of fluorescent
Yeah,
lights.
sure.
And, like literally nothing. You can hear and feel your own heartbeat. And to me, it's so strange just because of everything that I've gone through recently. But what did you guys think? I know you were up here on stage. What did you feel, Terry, out in?
Well, I'm okay with things getting quiet, especially in church, because I know when I'm just at home, I'm going to be distracted even if it's quiet, right? Because of cats or whatever.
Sure.
I'm not a crazy cat lady. I know I talk about cats a lot, but I only have two. And I know, though, when I'm going to be quiet here, I'm going to hear from God. Because that's just how my brain works after doing the prayer ministry for so long,
Yeah.
that when I know I'm going to focus on him, he's going to show up.
Sure.
I know he's always going to show up. And why I don't do that moment by moment, I can't answer that question.
Yeah.
But I know if someone forces me, like John, then I know that it's always going to be good.
Yeah. So really what you're saying, like for somebody that may not feel comfortable with the silence or has a hard time going through that, it almost seems like if you're in like a spot where you feel like it is scheduled or that it's coming. It's not just like a off the cuff, like, now I'm going to try to be silent right this second, but maybe if it seems more like this is the purpose of this time has been set. Is that, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, you're right, because if it feels spontaneous, well, I don't see how it would ever happen spontaneously.
Sure.
Because in my own personal life, there's never going to be something on in the background.
Sure, yeah.
Ever. I'm like Chris, there's got to be something.
Yeah. So that's I think that's great advice too. Like, a lot of things in life don't happen by accident, right? And I think that getting getting silent and allowing yourself to experience that. And not all prayer, when we've experienced prayer in a bunch of different ways, I do this out here the last handful of Wednesdays, and we've talked about that, some on Living Hope on the Line the last handful of weeks too. That prayer can look and sound a lot of different ways. But if you're looking for being silent, perhaps doing it very purposefully in some kind of scheduled way, like setting yourself up for that instead of just, it's 7:53, I think I'm going to try to get silent right now, and that may be more difficult. So if it's something that you're interested in doing, maybe try to find a time that's purposeful for that and create an environment that's good for that. Susan, what about you, as we talked about, like kind of transitioning into silence and how you maybe do that and how that works for you?
I think it goes back to what Terry was saying, you get to focus, and what you said, it's about being intentional, so that intentionality. So the initial cutting of the music and the silence, it can be a little bit jarring, and so it's kind of like the difference between silence in a suspenseful film where it's not good. It's a little bit ominous, you don't know what's going to pop out around the corner, and you're a little bit worried about it being too quiet. And then it can be like, okay, wait a minute, this is what we're here for, this is the purpose, and now I can settle into this peaceful silence, and it's not scary anymore.
Yeah.
So, but it is a transition. Sometimes it's faster than other times. It was okay tonight, but sometimes that suspenseful part lasts a little bit longer.
Yeah. And maybe makes us want to bail on it quicker,
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Well, as we get ready to kind of wrap up talking about this tonight, I think that's kind of what I want us to maybe speak to as we, if you want to, you don't have to say anything else, but speak to as we get ready to kind of wrap up, is maybe what do you find helpful about a prayer like tonight, a time of prayer like tonight, where we were a little bit, at the beginning, where we were a little bit more silent, as maybe compared to some of the other prayers that we've done, where maybe it was a little less silent, I guess? Like, I don't know, like what do you think the benefit is of working this into maybe a rotation of how you pray? Being more in silence and doing maybe more of the repetitive prayer. Like, is there an advantage to it? What do you find that to be?
I felt it was a little bit more intimate. Even though we were here in a larger setting, I felt it was a more intimate connection with God. And it was more, I don't want to say interactive, but it was more intentional. So where even, sometimes you have a rough part of your day and you just pray for peace. You just say a quick prayer. This was a step out of your comfort zone, come in, and you're extremely intentional in that conversation with God. And even though you're with others, it's an intimate conversation with God. We're not, it wasn't preaching out loud or anything like that. We read through, but our individual prayers were our individual prayers, and it was intentional intimacy. So I think it was a really good experience.
Yeah, I like that.
Well said.
You don't feel like you have to have anything else just because I did this. You don't have to talk. I just want to make sure I gave space. Yeah.
You gave me a microphone.
I did. Well, yeah. Yeah.
So
Row.
You can use it or not.
Because remember, I only have cats at home.
That's right.
So
that's
I'm
right.
talking. I think the benefit, as a suggestion, if somebody wanted to do it,
Yeah.
is for someone who has their mind racing all the time, to intentionally slow your brain down, like on purpose slow your brain down, not trying to go calm down, but actually just doing that kind of breathing, even if it's not those words, any word that will help you focus. It puts you in a space, like a different kind of space than your physical, because we were quiet for a long time. It felt like a long time, and there was no music, and there was no sound, and it was so quiet that I calmed down because of that. I had nothing else except those two words in my brain, and I just focused on that, and the more I focused on it, the more he came clearly to me.
Yeah.
Because the only thing in my brain was his name and that I belonged to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because John asked us to gave us the opportunity at least to speak out words that maybe we felt or how that made us feel at the end of that time of silence, and a lot of them did center around calmness, peace, things like that. And I thought that was interesting overall. I think if you're somebody that does have a hard time slowing down, I think all of us, whether we want to admit it or not, we all have a hard time slowing down. But if you're like ultra aware of that, like that is a major thing for you, this could be an interesting way to start off prayer, or even to pray when you don't know what else to pray. Because I think sometimes just sitting in complete silence, like Chris alluded to before, that's a lot. That's a lot to do. But to be able to have the words given to us to pray and to not have to do anything but be with God. I think that's something that can be incredibly helpful in the midst of a stressful day, a crazy day, or just when we don't even know what to say or what to do. And yet, in that experience, we heard all of us share, and different people share what they feel during that. Like, we still end up in communication and in relationship and in a back and forth with God, even though it's not an intentional conversation on our side of, hey, God, so this is what I need, and what do you want to say to me, and whatever else. Just saying his name and taking the time to purposefully, intentionally put ourselves in a spot where we can be with God and we want to try to meet with God. I think that's something that we'd encourage you guys to give a try this week. We all did it tonight. I think it was a great experience. Be willing to give that a try. If you're able to, I just really encourage you, again, come on out next week, 7 o'clock. It's about 15, 20 minutes. What a great way to be able to spend time in the middle of the week and reset and just be with a group of people with a common purpose of just meeting with God without any massive intentions behind that besides just meeting. It's a really cool thing, and we'd all definitely encourage you to come on out if you're able to. We thank you, as always, for coming and listening and being a part. We appreciate you guys, and we hope that you have a great week. I'm going to pray for us, and then we will head out. God, we just thank you. Again, just for the chance to be with each other, and more than that, just the fact that you're always here with us, wherever here is right now. Whether it's at somebody's kitchen table, whether it's a living room, out on a back porch, up here on the stage, wherever here is, that you're with us right here. What a thing. What a crazy thing. And that all we have to do is slow ourselves down enough and be willing to interact with you, because you're attempting to interact with us always. And I pray that you just help us to slow down enough this week, take the time in whatever way we need to take the time to interact with you, and to hear from you, and to be with you and be in relationship with you. And actually, even if people are watching, and for us up here even as well, like even if we don't really want that, I'm giving God you permission to force that on us this week, the rest of this week. Help us to be with you, whether we want to or not. We love you so much, God. In your name I pray. Amen. Thank you, guys. We'll see you again next week.